My name is John Courtney. If you live in St. Clair Township, the former Moore Township, or even visit this grand place, you won't see me on the streets or working on a farm, or anywhere for that matter. But my name will be forever tied to the history of this area. Around 1800, I was the first recorded English settler on what is now the Canadian side of the St. Clair River. And I want to tell you a little bit about the area I came to know as home, a place my family came to love. I myself was born in England, but I came to the New World in the late 18th century. A number of years later, I was sailing up the St. Clair River from Detroit, where I was involved in the fur trade. When my eyes fell upon Moore, I knew immediately that this would be the ideal area to continue my business and raise a family. Our new friends and neighbors were mostly those of French descent, including Louis Campeau, J-Baptiste Papineau, and James Bobby. But I might be getting a bit ahead of myself. You see, the area called Moore Township, along with Sombra Township and Walpole Island, was part of the district of St. Clair. And it wasn't until 1829 that a survey by Roswell Mount set apart the townships. Moore Township was named for Sir John Moore, a British Army captain who was killed in the Battle of La Corunna, Spain, in 1809. By 1829, when the survey was completed, there were just 24 settlers in Moore Township, their homes near the river, and for good reason. It was there, along the St. Clair River, that schooners provided easy transportation, especially important when you compare the dense bush and muddy trails that existed inland. Our neighbors also carried supplies using canoes or other small boats. Many years before my time, in 1679, the St. Clair River got its name from Father Louis Hennepin, a Roman Catholic priest who had been traveling upriver aboard the sailing ship Griffin for a load of furs. Because he was sailing on the feast day in honor of St. Clair, he gave both Lake St. Clair and the river that name. Today, you're more likely to enjoy the recreational possibilities of the St. Clair River, but in our day, it was transportation, and even more. It was our source of drinking water, making it unnecessary to dig a well. The river was also a source of food, fish that would supplement our diet, and even ice that was harvested in large blocks over the winter and packed in sawdust. Our numbers would increase during the 1830s, thanks in large part to grants of land by the British government to Army and Navy officers as well as soldiers. The retired officers, along with businessmen with some wealth, settled along the river and would hire help to clear the land. Often the farmers, laborers, and private soldiers who settled further inland. Farming wasn't the only way to earn a living in that day. With all those steamships going up and down the river, there was a strong demand by the boats for fuel in the form of cordwood, which gave local residents income. On the ships, even more earned their living as the years went on, whether as deckhands or captains. Indeed, at times it was not uncommon to hear ship captains talking to their wives and families on shore, using megaphones, earning the riverfront the name Yoo-Hoo Alley. The area would continue to grow. Thomas Sutherland established Sutherland's Landing, and in 1846, a store, dock, school, church, cemetery, tavern, doctor, tailor, shoemaker, and 2 blacksmiths called this home. Even that would be surpassed in size when James Bobby surveyed part of his farm in the 1850s, creating the village of Moore, which would later become Mooretown. And because he was awarded one of the first 4 post offices in Lambton County, Bobby's creation would begin to outgrow Sutherland's Landing. By 1869, Mooretown was home to 450 residents and 17 businesses, including a blacksmith shop, an absolute necessity for the production of tools needed by villagers and farmers alike. Mooretown's rise resulted in the decline of Sutherland's Landing. However, in the late 1860s, it was now Courtright's turn to surpass Mooretown. There had been some earlier development in the area that would become Courtright, but it was the arrival of the Canadian Southern Railroad, with its line from St. Thomas to the St. Clair River, that caused the biggest flurry. The plan was to connect this line by rail ferry across the river to Michigan. Named in honor of Milton Courtright, the president of the railway, The town grew quickly, so much so that when lots went up for sale, prospective buyers would come by special steamer from Wallaceburg and Sarnia. And even though Courtright enjoyed employment brought by the railroad, that bright light was dimmed somewhat when the anticipated rail line to the Michigan side of the river failed to materialize. Further north, Corunna was established in the early part of the 19th century, but settlement there did not occur as quickly as other places. Lord Beresford arrived in 1823, with his assignment from the British government being to select and survey a site for the capital of a proposed united Upper and Lower Canada. Lord Beresford chose Corunna and even laid out a town site, which included the 10-acre St. George's Square for government buildings and a street plan that created the shape of the Union Jack. But there was the recent War of 1812 to be considered, a fact that ultimately doomed the plans to make Corunna a capital city. With America just across the river, it would be too close for the comfort and security of Canadians. In spite of this early plan, it was not until 1837 that building lots were put up for sale in Corunna, and settlement began in earnest. Hotels soon sprung up to serve the river traffic, and many docks were built to handle exports of timber, grain, and potash. But the river wouldn't always remain only a means of moving cargo. Excursions on the passenger steamers, such as the Tashmoo and Northland, became popular in the late 19th century. Located in the St. Clair River just off Corunna, Stag Island was so named for the deer population that once lived there. The island was well positioned to benefit from the tourists on these passenger ships. Around 1890, Marysville, Michigan resident Nelson Mills built cottages, a hotel, dance pavilion, dining hall, and other recreational facilities on the island. Today, Stag Island, which is Canadian, has around 100 private cottages. Elsewhere in the area, communities that would be created also had the advent of the railroad to thank. Among them, Brigden, the largest inland community, where in 1869 a right-of-way was cleared for a Canadian Southern Railroad track. Nathaniel Boswell, the mastermind behind the creation of Brigden, purchased area land, believing the railroad would allow the development of a lumbering industry, and that a village would be needed to support it. Boswell laid out the village and built mills, a blacksmith shop, and some houses. In 1877, Hiram Hales began a brick and tile yard in Brigden, and predictably, most brick houses in the village used these bricks. The railroad not only delivered products to and from Moore Township, but also provided a transportation link within the township, including shipping bread from the bakery in Brigden to Courtright. It was only when the lumber supply dwindled and a reliable source of water became an issue that Brigden started to decline in population. Once a year, however, in early October, the population of Brigden swells. That's when the famous Fall Fair occurs. Organized by the Moore Agricultural Society and held around the township since 1850 and permanently in Brigden beginning in 1889. The event was so popular over the years that up until the mid-20th century, Sarnia school children were given a half-day holiday to attend. There were, of course, numerous other small communities that dotted the township landscape in the late 19th century. Among them, Wabuno, Collinville, and Kimball. Between the villages, though, from my time until the present, the majority of the township has been made up of agricultural land. In my day, farmers scattered seed by hand along the stumps remaining from the felled trees. Today's equipment allows the farmer to work hundreds of acres in a season. But many are still family enterprises, with some land now being tilled by the 6th or 7th generation of the same family, 150 or more years after the first settlement. Social and educational opportunities abounded, often with the establishment of a church being one of the first things done in a community. One of the first of these was St. Joseph's Roman Catholic Church in Corunna. Built in 1862, when the river was still the main transportation route, the church faces the river. It remains the township's most architecturally significant building. Another significant part of virtually every community was the school, located in villages and at crossroads, with 18 schools in Moore Township. Formal education often ended after grade 8, as high school required travel to the larger centers of Sarnia or Petrolia. At the turn of yet another century, on January 1st, 2001, Moore Township joined with Sombra Township to become St. Clair Township, a mix of rural, industrial, and urban enterprise. Even so, the mighty St. Clair River remains an important part of modern-day life, as it did in the history of the area. Today, it provides a transportation link for industry and agriculture by means of Great Lakes and ocean freighters that carry cargo. Take the opportunity to explore the buildings that make up Moore Museum's heritage community. While I'm no longer here in person, this is part of my story as well, and that of the families that have followed ours. We hope you enjoy your time here. Welcome.